You're listening to Solera Innovation Labs, where automotive experts from around the world discuss technology trends in mobility and debate tomorrow's rules of the road. Whether you're a technician, a dealer, an appraiser, a car lover, or anything in between, we'll discuss topics that will keep you up to date and help you and your business win.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Don's Drive-In. I'm your host, and today I'm very excited to have with us Larry Jaskowiak, the Vice President of OE certifications, or certified programs, and dealership relations at Boyd Gerber, Collision and Glass. And today we're going to discuss OE certification programs. And for those that aren't as familiar with what I mean by OE certification, it's the manufacturer's collision certified repair programs. And one of the things I think is interesting about this is the vehicle has continued to evolve and become more and more complex. We've seen the manufacturers move to a different model where they're really pushing to have control of the repair process and the quality of those repairs through their own certified programs. So with that, I'd like to say, welcome, Larry. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Don. Thank you again for having me, and I look forward to having this conversation with you.
Well, no, I'm excited. I think everyone and our listeners will be excited to tune in into this conversation about the certified programs because it just continues to evolve and grow. And why don't you do us a favor real quick and talk a little bit about your background in the industry and your role at Boyd Gerber?
Sure. So I'll try and give a treetop version because most of us have been in this industry a long time, have some sense of length on these. Like many of us that have been in the collision industry, I've always had a passion for working in cars. And I think that's really what led me into the industry. So my early career was actually on the line and started by attending one of what at the time was one of the best trade schools out there, which was Wyoming Tech in Laramie, Wyoming. It was a great school, taught you a lot of the basics, but also gave you many of the old school traits that you don't see anymore. And as my career progressed, I liked having them and liked being able to use that for future. After trade school, I started on the floor again and actually was part of a apprenticeship program with a GM dealership. And back in the day, that was pretty robust. Many of the dealers would sponsor apprenticeship and would have you work with senior technicians throughout the day. So I was very fortunate to get in that program.
And that wasn't on the mechanical side, though, right, Larry? It was in the collision side.
No, back then they actually had collision. Yes, yeah. I've never actually been a mechanic or turned a wrench on that side.
Do we even want to talk about what year that was?
No, we do not. We just want to do general topics on this, sir, but thank you for that.
All right. Well, I just want to say, because I think a lot of listeners will go, when did General Motors have an apprentice program in the collision side, right? So that may go back a few years.
It's been a few years, and I don't know if it was an actual formulated program, but the dealership that I was at was very big into the collision. And so it was probably in the pioneer years of that, but I enjoyed it, and it got me to where I needed to get through in my career path.
Well, my understanding then, Larry, is that you actually not only came from being a technician, but then worked your way into the front office, ran a facility for many years and grew that facility to be one of the top performing facilities, not only in the revenue, but even in its key metrics as far as the quality and integrity of the repairs. And that turned out to be an organization that grew to be five plus a towing, and that company ended up selling. And then you just continued to grow your career to becoming where you're at today, going from a tech to a manager to a regional to the COO of a large MSO group to now running the OE collision certification programs for Boyd Gerber. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Having the footprint and the background of where I started has helped me through every career position I've had. It does give you a different sense of value and view on the industry. But yeah, we been very fortunate in the last, I would say 25 plus years. I've worked for basically the same company. And that started with what you mentioned, a 5 group, which I feel is probably the start of smaller MSOs gathering locations way back then. And we took that 5 group location to the next level and started a startup that actually eventually got to 28 locations, doing around 75 million, which both of you and myself were part of. So I was very happy to be part of that. But as things continued and the larger group started to gather these smaller MSOs. We were sold in 2011 to Boyd Gerber. At that time, Boyd Gerber was very aggressive in obtaining locations. So 2011, I think it was July 1st, we closed on that. And from there, I actually took a role as a regional vice president overseeing the states of Florida and Indiana, which was about 85 locations.
Wow, that's awesome.
So where I'm at today, around 2017, I took the role of vice president of OE certification. And my role at that time was to, educate us on where we thought the strategy and development and our involvement with OE programs were. So I've taken the last couple of years to get entrenched in that. And again, from my past background, it helped me educate me, and I'm better informed with what's out there.
All right. Well, look, and we're excited to kind of now dig in a little bit to those certified repair programs. What's going on with the manufacturers and why they're going down this path, and really what does it mean to be involved? What's the equipment like? So we're going to talk a lot about these things, but I wanted to point out something as we started this conversation, because over the life of the collision repair world, I think in 2015, 16, and 17, we saw a decline in the number of shops. And if you look at Collision Week and even go through the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, what it shows is that over 18 and 19, we've seen an increase in the number of repair shops. So at its low point, there was about 34,500 shops, and today they're saying that we have over 35,000 shops. And many states are growing, with California one of being the largest, with the number of actual rooftops being added. So as you look at this, it draws me to the next conversation that says, okay, Larry, or the point of our conversation today on the OE collision certified programs, how many manufacturers are actually doing these today? Let's start there so people understand. Is it every manufacturer, or are there only 5 of them doing this? How many are you guys at Boyd Gerber being involved in today? Tell us a little bit about what you see there.
So today, I track and follow exclusively about 19 OE programs. There are other brands out there that don't today have a program. And then you look at some OEs that really are only designed for their dealership network. But, everybody has a version of the certification program, and that's somewhat confusing to the industry. But, I do see a lot of traction and a lot of discussion around OE certification. And I think, in the next couple of years, you'll see some advancements on where we're going with the programs.
Well, it's interesting because when you say this, it almost sounds as if the OE programs are new, right? But you and I both know that the European brands, be it the BMWs and Mercedes, had a certified repair program, collision repair program, many, many years ago. And Toyota actually started theirs back in 1997. So they're going on 21 years now that they've actually had a certified repair program. So this isn't new, but it's becoming more mainstream. Why do we think it's becoming more mainstream today?
Well, no, that's a valid point. Their certification's been around for some time with different OEs. I think a couple things are out there. Number one, the technology and the ADAS systems that all brands have now. They're concerned that their brand image is kept intact, and that they feel that OE certification and OE certified locations will get them a better repair, and that this is how they keep their brand loyalty by that. These cars today, there are so many functions of things that we take for granted, and you can look at a headlight or a tail light or even a bumper today. There are so many things and monitors and sensors built in and molded into these panels that what we looked for repairing in the past, we just can't do anymore. So, there's a lot of unknown about this stuff, but I believe that the OEs are looking for consistency in their repairs and to make sure that their brand image is kept intact by having these certified programs repairing their cars.
All right, so valid points, right? I get it. You want to have that customer feel comfortable about the manufacturer, go back to them. There's some loyalty. I love my General Motors car. They fixed it right. It was perfect, right? So I get all of that. But now that being said, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, and maybe you know this answer or not, but I was reading somewhere the other day that there's only about 3,500 plus shops, right around there, 4,000 shops that are really participating in the certified programs. So I know that as I was researching General Motors and what they've done, and this goes back to a statement they had over a year ago that they had about 1,000 on their program and starting to build it out. Ford's trying to go down and change the way they do it and really kind of maybe push down the manufacturer side. How many shops, or do you have a feel for that percent, if you will, of collision centers? Because we know that the number's going up. We know that there's about 35,000 shops out there. Not all 35,000 are going to be certified repair centers. So does that mean that one repairs the car better than the other? What does it mean to be part of that program?
Well, again, the number that we're seeing, I think, is somewhere between 9 and 10,000 certified shops in some form of a program. And again, looking at each program individually, some are more intense with tooling and training and guidelines. Not that they're any less, but there's just a different way of running their program. Today, anybody repairing cars, whether they're certified or not, if they're not utilizing and 100% following repair procedures on every repair, and that's prior to repairing the car, right? You can't start on a car and then say, oh, we found this material or we can't do this. I mean, you need to be regimented to make sure that these repair procedures are followed, and they're made for that, whether you're certified or not.
Sure.
Getting the ability to pull down those OE repair procedures is another thing, and that's what keeps the program different. But, these cars today are way different than what I even was used to, 8-10 years ago. You look at things differently, and the lack of knowledge is what really will get someone in trouble for an improper repair.
Well, yeah, we did an episode where we talked a lot about these type of components on the car. And one of the things interesting, I mean, you can remove a windshield wiper and set off a ton of different sensors on that vehicle that need to be calibrated or reset. So, it isn't as simple as just changing a wiper blade like you would on an older vehicle. So we understand that. So getting into this, you talked about the tooling. So let's talk about, look, we have a lot of shops that'll listen to us. What does it take to be a part of a program? Do I need to have all of my technicians certified, one of them certified? Do I have to have certain welding equipment, brazing? Do I have to have special rivet guns? Does it cost me, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to be on a program? Can I have the same tools for all of the programs? Tell me a little bit about that complexity, because I think there's a lot of listeners who are going to go, okay, great. I'm a part of General Motors. That means I have all the tooling to go do Ford and Toyota, but that's not true, is it?
No. So I'll answer that question in a couple points. Number one, there's a lot of unknown about OE certification, and depending on how engaged you are with it, these questions continually to come up. What program should I be on? What do I need for tooling? How many techs do I certify? All of these things are very confusing to many people. And every program has a different twist on equipment, welders, and things like that. And it's constantly changing. When you get a new model out there may be another welder that worked last year for the program but didn't this year. So if you're going to be entrenched into the OE certification program, you got to know that there's going to be tooling and training changes constantly. It's just part of the new models.
Sure. And we also talked about repair procedures, Larry. And with that, and I'm just asking the question because I don't know the answer. If I become an OE certified General Motors shop, do they provide me with the procedures as well? Or do I have to go source those somewhere? I'm just trying, do I get access to information I didn't have before? Or do I still need to go through with a third party and get that data?
Most of the OEs provide that information after you're certified, and you have passwords and access to get into it.
Okay.
And basically, you not only want the location to have that access, but the technicians as well, because they're really the ones with the feet on the street really, needing this information. So yes, when you are part of these, you are privy to this information.
And you got multiple steps in this, right, Larry? I mean, it's also the estimator or the shop manager, whoever's writing the blueprint or doing the blueprinting has to have access to this information. They need to be part of this certification, right? Because I would think they want the people who are estimating the damages to be part of that certification program as well as the ones repairing it. Or am I off in that? Or is it just different from OE to OE?
No, you are spot on with that. As I mentioned earlier, anybody that's repairing cars or writing estimates without repair procedures in front of you, you're wasting your time, because basically, your blueprinting process should start with that. But to your point of estimators being certified, it is getting to that level right now. There's probably 4 or 5 brands that require estimators to be involved in the certification process.
Okay.
So they are attending off-site classes. There are some that are doing just the online, through ICAR.
Sure.
But to your point, you do need to have everyone involved in that process, and not just the techs to be involved, so that we're all on the same page when it comes to properly repairing that car.
Well, and another thing that I want to ask a question too, because we have this product that we own at Solera, which is Identifix, and with Identifix we have our what we call a virtual tech. And one of the things about the virtual tech is that if you don't have if you follow a repair procedure and it doesn't fix the problem, you can actually call on a hotline and work with a master certified technician to help you solve your problem, right? So it's that virtual tech. Looking into what Ford's doing with their certification program, it looks like they're bringing a lot of it in-house. And they even talk about having a hotline for collision repair because there's not a procedure for everything. Are you guys experiencing that? Have spent some time with it? I mean, is it a great program? Do you feel it's been very supportive, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm heavily involved with the Ford program, and actually have a weekly call with the gentlemen that run the program. They're going through a little bit of transition right now as they are all in and own the program, where they were, utilizing a third-party facilitator. But we've had many conversations with them and other OEs about having a hotline, and many of them are developing it. It just depends on the brand today, but I foresee all of them having a hotline that we can reach out to.
Over time, yeah.
Yeah. And, you're right. Not everything is a cookie cutter, and there's some ways that we feel could be a better way of repairing it, but we just need validation from the OE. And, getting that one-on-one is really what everyone's after.
These are large infrastructures that these manufacturers got to put in place, right? I see this as a huge challenge for them, but do they feel there's a return? I think one of the biggest things, and Larry, you and I spent a lot of time together, right? And in our past, it was always about what's the return. No different than the shops are out there thinking, okay, how do I be if I buy the equipment and go through the certification, here's my expense. What's my return? So 2 questions in this. One, if I become part of a certified repair program, does that mean that they send me work, or do I still get it the traditional way as it stands today? And the second part of that question is, can the infrastructure that someone like Ford's putting in have that hotline be accretive to their business in the overall side, or is it just an additional expense? I mean, how do they find a return? So that's a 2-part question.
Yeah, so the first part is in the gray area or the unknown. Is how do I know what the return on investment is? I look at this, it's very hard today to understand where that business is coming from. Is it still your traditional insurance relationship work? Is it someone that actually went online to see if you're certified? There's still some gray areas where that shift will come from. I think not being prepared for the shift is something that most people, if they put off, will not be happy. I think that OE certification is here to stay, and that whether you're part of the program or not, you should at least get yourself aware of what it takes to be on part of a certified program, and then make that judgment whether it's a good investment or not. The positive side on return on investment, many of the OEs today are starting to work together on equipment synergies. So in the beginning, there might have been only 1 or 2 versions of a welder or frame rack or a measuring system. A lot of them today are open to utilizing multiple pieces of equipment, which makes it more advantageous. So if you buy equipment for, let's say, Tesla, you would have the ability to do 2 or 3 or 4 other programs. And there may be a welder or a specific tool with the program, but the initial cost would be included in that first program. So you really need to do your homework on it, on what makes sense for your location and what you're trying to get out of certification. Well, as far as Ford goes, I know those guys very well. They really wanted to own the certification program. They wanted to be involved. They knew that it would take some additional people to help manage it. So I think they look at this as having more control over the program, and they feel that ultimately that will give them, better customer service by having more control on who's on the program what tooling is required. Even with their program, which is now about a year old on their new version, there's equipment changes and things that have to be gotten to be part of the program, even though you might have been on it, a year or two ago.
All right. Well, look, Larry, what we're going to do here is I want to continue this conversation, and we're going to take a short break. But when we return from the break, what I want to really spend some time talking about with you as we continue on the OE certified programs is first notice of loss, number one, the infrastructure these manufacturers are going to need to put in place, and a few of those other things that kind of go around that. But we're going to be right back after a short message.
Sounds good.
If you're listening to this episode of Solera Innovation Labs on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up, comment below on what you thought about the episode, and feel free to ask questions about anything you've heard today, and tell us what you want to hear more of. Welcome back, everyone. I'm joined here today with Larry Jaskowiak, the Vice President of OE Certified Programs and Dealership Relations at Boyd Gerber, and we're talking about all of the OE certification programs and the things that we need to know and the questions that maybe many of you are thinking out there. As we were talking through earlier the programs and how they've evolved, we've kind of left off on a couple of topics that I want to get some answers on. One of the things we talked about earlier, Larry, and you mentioned it was a gray area, was because I'm on a certified program, do I get any work? And that brings me to the next side, is many of them have these programs in the car, like the OnStar programs, that would enable them to do first notice of loss. And actually, they're taking that information, right? They have, with the telematics, information on your vehicle right away as to some of the things that may or may be wrong, may or may not be wrong with the car. Where do you see that evolving in these programs and the certified groups? I mean, do you see in the future that someone like Ford can take the first notice of loss, make sure the customer's okay, send an ambulance, send a tow truck, and move it to a repair center right away and provide them with the diagnostic information that happened at the time of the loss? I mean, do you see it going in that direction? And how fast do you see it going in that direction?
That is definitely a game changer, and it's already happening today. I had the luxury of being in a BMW call center for that specifics. And it's amazing, as you mentioned, how much information they know on the vehicle from the sensors. So to your point, that is definitely, going to be something that is going to be part of not only OE certification, but again, how we receive assignments in the future. And I'm sure you have this data, but the numbers that I have, by 2020, around 85% of all new car vehicles will have some form of telematics. And depending on, how intense the individual uses it, the scenario that you just said, where the vehicle is involved in an accident, immediately, if they can communicate through the vehicle system, they'll do it. Otherwise, they'll use traditional cell phone. But those questions of, are you okay? Do you need medical assistance? Do you need towing assistance? And then that piece of educating the consumer about certified programs and where the nearest facility may be is happening today. There are 2 OEs today that actually pay for the tow from the scene as long as the customer, takes the vehicle to an OE certified.
Is going to one of their program shops, right? One of their OE prop.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've all hopefully have never been in that situation, but at that point in time, people aren't thinking clearly. They're getting information from their OE, which they rely on since they bought their vehicle. So that is a real game changer. And, with everything else that's going on in the industry and equipping these cars, first notice of loss for us could come from a different avenue.
Well, and Larry, it brings me down to another question. You and I, again, we go way back in our history. And so I look at the financial side of this, right? And I struggle to say, how do they put this infrastructure in place? There's another end game to this, right? Is it the fact that they're selling more OE parts? Is there the fact that they can control the resale of this vehicle now because it's done from an OE certified shop versus it being done from a non-OE certified shop? Does that mean that when you go to trade that car in, it's got more value? Can they sell it for higher value even though it says it's been in an accident? I mean, where do you think this is driving that OE? Because there's got to be a return somewhere.
Well, I think the verdict is still out on how all this will transpire. I know there's a lot of industry work on this. I attend a lot of OE conferences, And I would say in the last 3 or 4, there's been some representative from an insurance company. And I'm not sure all the details are worked out yet as far as where the cost will come from. I think at this point, they're just trying to work through the details of how it would look. Sure. And how does it benefit the customer? And it may be as simple as a warm transfer from insurance company A to that brand saying, I have Mrs. Smith, she has X car, and we're trying to facilitate her with the nearest location. It could be something as simple as that. I know there's staffing involved, so I know there's a lot of focus on this because there's concern on all parties.
So we may see a hybrid model, right, is what you're saying. We may see a hybrid model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you brought up a valid point about how does the OE certification validate that the car was repaired right? How does it not affect resale value, right? I mean, that's a challenge that we still face today. So there's a lot of focus today around validation, the repair doc, and it's not something that, okay, I have the right welders, I have the right equipment, all my iCar modules are done, I have the 2 same techs. It's going to come down to photos, repair documentation, and there's a number of people working on this. But I think that ultimately gives not only the consumer but the OE a sense of that the car was done right and we did follow these. Where that ends up, but I think it is the start of what we see in the OE certification for validating what we did.
So now that brings me to another point. And Larry, we haven't talked about this yet, so I want to kind of cover the gamut of OE programs from the beginning to the end, and we're starting to go through this. So now let's just say the first notice of loss happens. They they deal with it, they get it to one of their shops, and the car gets repaired. What mechanisms are in place to go back and quantify or qualify those repairs or certify the repair from the certified center? Does that make sense? I mean, is there third parties that are out there that are hired by the manufacturers to go out and sample these repairs to ensure the fact that they are following all the procedures? Tell me about some of the validation programs that are in place.
Today there are third-party facilitators that validate not only the store to make sure that the equipment and the training is there. They will periodically look at vehicles. I don't know the number of vehicles they actually look at, but I firmly believe that here in the very near future that there will be a requirement to validate repair documentation, not just the individual checkoff sheet that we've traditionally been using, something with a little more bite to it. And that's the one thing that when I got into this and I was actually understanding OE certification better, I would ask the OEs this question. And Don, you've known me a long time. I just blurted out there. And I asked them, after we validate the tooling and validate the training and we've done everything you need and we have the shingle, how do you know that we're repairing your cars right? And, they all kind of say, look, we're partnering with someone because we trust they're doing the right thing. So, I mean, at the time, that was the answer. But I think moving forward, especially with the cars that are out there today, you just cannot take a chance that something wasn't done properly. And I think this form of repair documentation that everybody is going to require will solve that for now. And it can't be something that each store signs off on. It would have to be a universal doc that everybody uses and validates, the program details.
So Larry, when we start talking about the certified repairs, one of the things that again, crystal ball, that's what we're talking about on the crystal ball side of things. So this is all speculative for all of our listeners. But if I take my car to a OE certified repair center for collision repair, does that mean that when the manufacturer or the dealer gets that car as a used car, do you think that it's going to change the way they sell certified used vehicles in the future because it's gone to the OE certified repair center and using the OE procedures? Does that mean it now can be certified as a used car, do you think, potentially?
Not today as it stands, but that is the intent for all OEs and basically kind of give it a clean bill of health. That repair should follow that VIN number, not the customer. So there's a couple things happening in the industry today. One of them is warranty. I mean, it's the start of what you're talking about, Don. So if you look at warranty, some of the manufacturers now say, look, if you don't have a certified collision center within your dealership, if you send warranty out and they are not a certified location, we will no longer pay that warranty. So that has started probably in the last year or so, and you're starting to see many dealerships that have some warranty issues go online and find the nearest certified location. So they know that, and that message is very clear from the manufacturer. The other thing that is happening is when you look at the way the cars today are brought into the dealership, whether it's through a lease or they're just bringing it back to sell in, that process is not very entailed. What it is they look at the car, they pull the Carfax, they'll have a detailer or someone look at it for nicks and scratches. But the whole goal, I believe, of the dealer is to get that consumer back into a new car and then take their chances on the car they're trading in, right? That's how it's been. So the OEs are looking at changing that model, but it's a cultural change for them because they know that if they challenge that customer with a part that is an OE, for them to get them to buy the next unit, does that mean they have to go and have a new windshield put in or something done before they'll accept that car? So that's kind of a gray area. But one of the areas that the OEs are really looking into, and if you look at leases and, just a raw number, I would say that most, if you roll all the leases up, it's probably somewhere between 45 and 50% of all new cars are leased. And a lot of that is driven from the premium brands and Tesla and all those brands. But if you read into the contract, it states very clearly on parts choice, certified pro repairs. So if they wanted to utilize that contract, they could. That's low hanging fruit. And again, when I ask the OEs on that, they kind of smirk and say, we know we need to get better with that, but today there's not a good, clean process in place. Repairing and having a repair documentation that someone could actually look at and validate it was done right, I think that will help many of these situations for, value of the vehicle and will bring to light of a certified vehicle, not just for mechanical.
Yeah, well, and I think that's part of, again, it's the crystal ball. But if it goes to a certified repair center and now they're looking to trade their car in, if they could trace that VIN and know that it's been in a wreck, but it was at an OE certified shop for that, that manufacturer, now they would say that the trade-in value may be X versus Y, which now creates more loyalty. And so that's where you think the concepts to, again, crystal ball, where it's kind of going. So Larry, as we started, and I said it before, kind of from the beginning, first notice of loss, the programs all the way through the end of this thing, another compelling question about the OE certification programs is Tesla. And I say it because Tesla came out with really a very, very stringent program. And it's changed over the time, but not only did it change in the way it's being administered, but now they are also opening and have opened many of their own repair centers. So do we see kind of the combination is going where you will find manufacturers do their own shops and they're only going to be the ones with the certified program, or are we going to see it be open to the independent repair shops to be part of and participate in the, or is it just a hybrid that's going to be out there based on manufacturers? What do you see?
I don't hear from any of the OEs that they want to get into the collision business. Today Toyota is really one of the programs that still looks for their dealership group to serve their customers. And where that's going to go over time is still out there. But when you get to Tesla, their program has definitely changed. I've been with them now 3 years and understand, what and why they're doing it. I think to your point, they are not looking to be, 100 plus collision centers. They tried this concept to help them understand why the delays are and why the severity is what it is. The collision centers they have today that I know of are more of a light hit, wet sand and buff. They're not doing any structural. They're not doing any welding. So I believe they have 3 or 4 today. I could be mistaken, but it's not what we would can classify as our traditional collision shop where we do it all. Again, they had a little bad publicity about length of time on repairs, cost of repairs, and their overall parts process, because it is way different than what we traditionally do when we either email, pick up the phone, or use a electronic system order parts. Their system, because they are considered to be a pretty high tech, it does take some training to understand how their parts come to you. It has gotten better over time, and I just see that most OEs, that's really not their expertise, and I don't really see them venturing into it. I do, however, see some alliances with maybe insurance partners and OEs, having a one-stop version, and there are many pilots out there today.
Yeah. Well, and look, Larry, this conversation has been great, and I really appreciate your time. And I think what I would like to do for the listeners is kind of maybe wrap this up a little bit with a couple of comments and then see what your thoughts are here. Because as we went through this, again, I wanted the listeners, especially if it's shops or insurers, to understand that certified repair programs have been around for a long time. I mean, we date back to 1997 when Toyota started theirs, right? So this isn't new to the industry, but it's becoming more and more prevalent and more important based on the sophistication of the vehicles and where the manufacturers want the loyalty and those cars to kind of the circle of life, if you will, of that car to come back. Maybe it turns into a certified repair or used car in the future, right? That's yet to be determined. But if you're a shop listening today, it sounds as if through this conversation that you do want to participate. Yes, there's expense to buy equipment and tooling, but as these guys, as manufacturers continue to evolve, what you're seeing is them taking first notice of loss, potentially being able to recommend shops within the area that are part of their certified program. There are third-party groups that will actually certify those repairs. This may lead to higher residual values on the vehicle when it goes to trade-in, which helps the consumer. All this means to me, if I'm a listener and I'm a shop, that I probably should take some notes on this and start to take a look at programs. And if that's the case, and Larry, I ask with this kind of final question into what we've talked about today. The manufacturers are out there. Of course, Toyota and Honda are two of the largest manufacturers on the road today. So that's probably a good place for shops to start. Or is there other manufacturers that if I was a small independent shop that I should start to go look for the program, or does it really a reflection of what kind of vehicles or makes are coming into your shop and then trying to take a look at it that way? If I'm a small shop, what am I thinking to do here to get involved?
That's a good start. You really need to know the makeup of the models that you work on consistently. Make sure that you understand what the program's about. Some of the programs, the higher end premium brands require sponsorship. So make sure that relationship is solid, because you do need them to sponsor you.
And is that sponsor traditionally coming from your parts supplier or your dealer?
Yeah, the sponsorship would come from a local dealer.
Oh, okay.
And, but even prior to that, you need to make sure that not only is there a need in the market, but you're willing to commit to the expense that is attributed to these programs. So, by and large, just do your homework, make sure that it makes sense. And even if you're not on the program, just make sure that you have the ability for your techs to have access to these repair procedures, because it is so crucial. And, when I was coming up through the ranks, and it was very important to me that I fixed every car like it was a family member and that it was right, and you took the time to do it right. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. The consumer is banking on you doing the right things, and really we need to do that. And with these new cars, there's no room for error anymore.
Right. Look, here at Solera and the Innovation Labs, and especially Dodge Drive-In, we appreciate you coming on to talk about this today. And we look forward to seeing where Boyd Gerber goes as they continue to grow and be a force inside the industry. And we appreciate your time today. So, Larry, thank you for participating. And we look forward to yet another conversation in the future about what Boyd's doing.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Solera Innovation Labs is a podcast produced by Solera, a global leader in data-driven solutions and services. Solera collects and translates complex data into actionable insights for automotive, identity, and property partners across 90 countries and counting. Learn more at Solera.com or find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.